7th of November, just a few days to December to start celebrating Christmas and Christmas carols, of course. Start listening to that as we continue to the festive season. Good morning. Welcome to the program this particular morning, and thank you so much for trusting us to bring you up to speed with what you're waking up to as far as news is concerned, and also a conversation this particular morning, taking a look at where we are headed as a country from the political front all the way to social issues. Femicide cases have been on the rise as we, mark 16 days of activism in the country and across the globe. We'll be having a conversation, taking a look at where we are headed to. And also, President William Ruto did take his campaigns, if that's what you're going to call it, to lure Nyanza to some extent, trying to cool the Mount Kenya heat. We are going to be looking at that and trying to take a look at where exactly is the direction of the nation as far as politics is concerned. Who is going to be supporting him when it comes to 2027? What has he lost so far, and what does he stand to gain from the opposition strong base, and that is the ODM strong base, of course, keeping in mind that he's been in Nyanza. This is the second time ever since the broad-based government, and just trying to take a look at what that means for him and also for the ODM party and for Raila Odinga when it comes to matters AUC. Now, also on Matters News, we'll be telling you exactly what you're waking up to, taking a look at the newspapers. And of course, I'll be speaking to my guests later on. That includes Samuel Pogisho, who is the former minister, Dr. Isaac Hassan, who is a governance expert, and of course, MP Kacheliba, that is Titus Lote. We'll be having that conversation here on set later on. And get us on our socials at Amoy Brian, that is on X at K24 TV. We are also live across social media platforms at K24 TV, that is on Facebook and also on YouTube. Do tell us where you are waking up from and where you are watching us from, and we'll be sampling your feedback as we continue with the program this particular morning. All right, let's begin with the news this particular morning, and we start with President William Ruto has urged Kisumu residents to support his government as he looks forward to sending Raila Odinga to the AUC. Ruto, Ruto, who is seeking new political alliances ahead of the 2027 elections, is actually in Nyanza region for a tour that will see the region actually back him ahead of the 2027 elections. Martin Opio reports on this particular story.
In a resounding entry, President William Ruto returned to Kisumu, where he was welcomed with jubilation for the second time since the inception of the broad-based government, where opposition figures from the region were incorporated into the government.
Sababu nyinyi.
Ruto went on a charm offensive to the region, demanding that Nyanza back his government.
Mimi nilisimama hapa Kondele, nikasema siku moja nilisaidia Agwambo, na safari hii yeye amerudisha mkono, amenisaidia mimi. Mimi nawauliza, iko makosa hapo? Iko makosa? Iko makosa? Tuendelee ama tuendelee? Tuendelee ama tuendelee?
Ruto argues that his motive behind his support for Odinga's AUC bid is simply because Raila was there for him when the going was tough.
Si tulikubaliana Agwambo tunaenda kumuombea ili awe kiongozi wa Afrika. Nikiongea na nyinyi saa hizi, juzi alikuwa kule Ivory Coast, jana amekuwa kule Senegal, leo ako kule Nigeria akitafuta kura ya kuwa kiongozi wa bara la Afrika.
Despite hurdles facing the AUC chair candidate, including stiff competition from Djibouti's candidate, Ruto believes that the seat will be coming home.
Nyinyi watu wa Kenya mtamuombea. Mtamuombea. Wale wanasema tuombea kwamba nione kwa mkono.
President Ruto has been in a political quagmire after the fallout with his ousted Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and has been looking for partners ahead of 2027, with the mountain seemingly slipping away. In spite of the situation, the president says his government has no room for tribalism, remarks that appeared to be targeting the former DP.
Jameni, si hii serikali tumeunda ya broad-based. Hii ya broad-based. Si tumekubaliana tuunganishe Wakenya wote. Nyinyi watu wa Kisumu mko ndani. Munasema wa kule Mombasa wawe ndani.
President Ruto's 2027 challenges are further compounded by lamentation from Kenyans over the high cost of living and the government's taxation policies. The president spoke during the official opening of the 4th African Sub-Sovereign Governments Network AFSNET conference in Kisumu. Martin Opio, K24 TV.
Of course, we'll be taking a look at that particular story as we continue the conversation, taking a look at the direction of the nation. Let's continue with the news this morning. Now, President William Ruto went to Nyanza bearing some goodies. Among them is the government allocation of 2.7 billion shillings to address the high number of accidents and fatalities on Lake Victoria. Now, he said this during the 4th investment conference of the African Sub-Sovereign Governments Network in Kisumu County, where he also announced the establishment of a Lake Victoria Rescue and Coordination Center to address the challenges.
The 2.7 billion shilling investment will see construction of rescue centers across 5 counties bordering Lake Victoria to provide assistance and rescue in case of accidents.
Promoting peer-to-peer learning, this forum of Afri-cities strengthens cooperation among sub-sovereign governments and devolution, a tremendous innovation established under our 2010 Constitution, has evolved into an exemplary success story that Kenyans are very proud of.
The president was speaking in Kisumu during the opening of the 4th African Sub-Sovereign Governments Network Conference within the lakeside, said the project aims to make Lake Victoria a safe place for fishermen. Statistics indicate that at least 5,000 people lose their lives in Lake Victoria each year. The president expressed his government commitment to reduce the deaths and maximize the lake's contribution to the country's economy.
Committed and consistent collective action is essential to deepen African integration, enhance our collective economic resilience, and promote greater levels of intra-Africa trade. Equally certain is the fact that going forward, Pan-African transformation will increasingly depend on institutions like Afri-Exim and many others to mobilize resources and create a conducive environment for investment in job creation, poverty reduction, industrialization, and a stronger export performance and accelerated development through intra-Africa trade.
According to Kenya Maritime Authority Director Martin Munga, the facility, which includes an operational center, a security control center, a communication room, and a regional coordination office, will be equipped with rescue boats, ambulances, and evacuation helicopters. The investment will enhance transportation and communication and establish 5 rescue centers across counties of Busia, Kisumu, Siaya, Homa Bay, and Migori. Edwin Mbogwa, K24.
Right, thank you, Edwin Mbogwa, for that particular report. Away from that, now the Kenya Council of Church Ministries and Alliances has reiterated that their role is limited to offering prayers and moral guidance to the country. Now, the council has also explained their position on offerings, urging those who give to the church to do so with a pure intentions. They also expressed concerns about several challenges that remain unresolved, including issues related to taxation, unemployment, insecurity, the delayed reconstitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, and the struggling education system.
The Kenya Council of Church Ministries and Alliances has once again emphasized that they're not affiliated with the government and their role is strictly to offer prayers and moral guidance. On the issue of church donations, the leaders stressed that while giving is biblical, they are concerned when offerings are made with ulterior motives or for publicity, saying such acts undermine true generosity.
There's nothing wrong in giving to the Lord, but how? So the how is the concern I believe a number of the clergy have. But giving to God is biblical. There's nothing wrong with that. Whenever we are receiving the offerings and collecting offerings in church, we do not say now it is time for politicians. We don't say it is time for business people. We, all of us, bring to the Lord what God has blessed us with without announcing and without saying this is from so and so. So I believe the how here is what need to be very clear. Whenever you are giving, let not even your left hand know what you are giving.
We think it's wrong for anyone to give for the purpose of publicity. To build this house requires money. To buy that seat you are seated there requires money, meaning giving is a principle that must be maintained.
In addition to these concerns, the council expressed their frustration over a number of national challenges that remained unresolved. They highlighted that overtaxation has depleted disposable income of Kenyans amid high costs of living.
Mr. President, Kenyans are hurting economically. We call upon your government to act swiftly to address these challenges and provide the much-needed relief to citizens.
They also urged the government to systematically review the transitional process of Social Health Insurance Fund to ensure accessibility and affordability for all Kenyans.
This change was meant to be the beginning of a major transformation towards universal health coverage. Instead, it has left many Kenyans without functional health insurance covers, forcing them to dig deeper into their pockets to access health care at a time of significant economic hardship.
With the new school calendar set to start in a month's time, the church leaders had a number of questions about the education sector, especially on the construction of grade 9 classes.
With less than 50 days left before the January deadline, the government has only managed to construct 5,000 classrooms, from what we are told, out of the required 16,000.
They also condemned the rising and unresolved cases of femicide and abductions.
The people responsible of all these killings have not been brought to book. We ask the government to fast-track the investigations and bring the culprits to justice to alleviate a feeling by the citizens that the security apparatus are involved.
The clergy also pointed out the delayed reconstitution of Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission (IEBC), which has not only hampered elections but also preparedness of the 2027 general election, which is now less than 3 years away. The leaders further urged the government to tackle corruption head-on and divisive politics and work towards uniting the country in harmony and inclusivity. Harriet Chimea, K24.
Now, pending bills has been a major setback in implementing Taifa Care and rolling out the Social Health Authority. Now, the government says 3.7 billion shillings has been disbursed to cater for pending NHIF claims, Linda Mama program and the SHA capitation payments. Now, the Ministry of Health says that contracts with facilities that were unable to offer services have now been published to enable them to offer needed services. So far, 15.2 million Kenyans have registered under the new health insurance, even as the push for all Kenyans to register continues. Now, newly named Acting Social Health Authority CEO Robert Ingasira gave the update. Let's listen.
Social Health Insurance Fund, and we have the Emergency Critical and Chronic Illness Fund. So, where we have most of the claims is under the Social Health Insurance Fund. And these are the ones that we are at the very tail end of determining how much of them are we able to pay. Under primary health, if you remember in my earlier mention, I had said we have already disbursed 1.35 billion under primary health. In terms of paying, we are going to consider the claims that will be at the stage of payment. So it is a figure that has accumulated from 1st of October to date. It keeps growing. If we check even now, it must have grown by a few millions. But then when we are paying, we will consider payment for those ones that have moved up to the payment stage.
Regard to medical refills, I'll take you back to the 3 funds that are under the Social Health Authority. We've talked about the Primary Health Care Fund. We've also talked about the Social Health Insurance Fund, and finally the Emergency, Chronic and Critical Illness Fund. The Emergency, Chronic and Critical Illness Funds ensures that those living with terminal diseases are able to get care whenever they need to. So in that regard, if anyone needs refills in terms of the medication they're taking, whether it's for diabetes, whether it's for chronic or cardiac issues, they will be able to access that medication through the facility they have been attending.
Now, the update, or rather, former acting CEO Elijah Washira was sent on 90-day compulsory leave 2 weeks ago. Now, let's take another story as far as that is concerned. I believe the next story, which is on tax amendment bills. Now, that is mobile network Safaricom now wants an exemption of M-Pesa transaction fees, telephone and internet services, and donations from electronic tax invoice management system provision, saying that the requirement to issue electronic tax invoices applies to persons carrying on a business in Kenya. Now, most of the charitable organizations do not conduct income-generating activities and therefore are not required to issue electronic tax invoices. These proposals was presented during the ongoing public participation hearings on tax laws. Now, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, KAM, during the presentation called for a review of the exemptions granted to various products such as packaging material. Linda Koskei now reports.
Safaricom submitted 6 amendment tax proposals about the finance bill, which was tabled by the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning for consideration.
If you make internet data affordable, then you're driving the government agenda in terms of digital transformation.
The telco presented a proposal to exempt M-Pesa transaction fees, telephone and internet services, and donations from electronic tax invoice management system provisions.
Example is that this particular provision in that Finance Act of 2023, there was a proposal to reduce, actually it was passed, the proposal was to reduce the excise duty rate from 20% to 15%, which was passed in the Finance Act of 2023. Now we want to go back to 20%, and it's only 1 year. And the National Tax Policy talks about stability.
Additionally, ATC, Kenya Operations Limited, an operator of wireless and broadcast communications infrastructure in Kenya, proposed to the committee to consider to reduce the withholding tax rate to the Income Tax Act from 7.5% to 5%, saying that withholding tax deducted at source on the lease rental payments for the use of telecommunication towers can be claimed as a tax credit.
And Airtel and Telecom, but they are the backbone of the telecommunication sector because they provide the facilities where these mobile network operators place their switches to be able to transmit either voice or data.
Telecommunication tower companies in a tax loss position are unable to utilize the withholding tax credits and have to seek a cash refund of the tax overpayment, which is often a long process.
It's a very capital-intensive industry, and it's actually a very new industry.
Manufacturers continue to encounter challenges in their VAT refund application upon the enactment of the VAT Regulations 2017, which introduced 17 formula to determine the portion of input VAT refundable to an entity that produces both zero-rated and standard-rated supplies.
So we have a mismatch. And that's why that mismatch, because that's not belonging to the government, VAT refund. I think we are not understanding the principle. It is taxpayers' money going back to taxpayer. But then we have to seek so many permission and beg. I think that begging should stop.
As a result, some of the manufacturers have accumulated a substantial amount of VAT credits or credit adjustment vouchers.
Exports. You can't claim excise, you can't claim some of these levies, IDF, RDL. That's why exports, as we told you, margins are 3 to 4%, 2 to 3, 4%. Okay. And all this, any new cost, and I told you, new levies which are coming.
CAM called for a review of the exemptions granted to various products, such as packaging material that are exempted or zero-rated. Products such as ink became a point of contention. Pressures on the supply chain have been major contributors to increased paper and ink cost, and if the government imposes a tax on ink products, it might impact the availability of the commodity and in turn see the prices shoot up.
The issue here is about what is those specialty inks that are used as raw material, vis-a-vis what you're saying is the finished product, which might be the retail inks. Allow the team to go back and clarify with the large producers or who use inks in their production as raw material to state which of those inks they're not getting locally, So we have clarity on this matter.
According to Volza's Kenya import data, Kenya imported 2,969 shipments of printing ink from March 2023 to February 2024. The hearings continue on Wednesday, with more Kenyans and groups expected to present their proposals. Linda Koskei, K24 TV.
All right, now the government has established 578 new administrative units across the country in what it says has been necessitated by population growth and to comply with the two-thirds gender rule. Now, the administrative units established include sub-counties, divisions, locations and sub-locations.
Acting Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration Musalia Mudavadi has gazetted 578 new administrative units across the country. In a notice on Tuesday, November 26, 2024, Mudavadi says the move affecting at least 24 counties has been necessitated by population growth and to comply with the two-thirds gender rule. He also adds that the government's move aims at improving the coordination of services to members of the public. When operational, the 27 sub-counties, 59 divisions, 170 locations and 322 sub-locations are expected to improve citizens' access to government services and effectively address security issues in respective areas. The establishment of these administrative units means the government will have to fill 578 positions, adding to the already bloated wage bill. This is even as Kenya aims to reduce the current revenue ratio to wage bill, which is currently at 47%, to at least 35% by 2028. David Kagina, K24, Nairobi.
All right, now it has emerged that renovations at the Deputy President's office at Harambee Annex cost taxpayers 450 million Kenya shillings, despite the building's value of 600 million Kenya shillings. And this comes as the fate of former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua staff was sealed with official confirmation that they ceased to be employees of on the 31st of last month.
Appearing before the Internal Security Committee of the National Assembly on the budget implementation for the Office of the Deputy President, details of the ongoing renovations at the Harambee Annex, the official residence in Nairobi's Karen and Mombasa have been laid bare.
You realize that the refurbishment of the building, both at Harambee Annex and Karen residence, as well as Mombasa residence, ran for the 5 years. So when you talk about the estimated value of the project, this is the refurbishment that will go through the five years. And I could highlight maybe some of the things that are yet to be done. In Harambee Annex, we have the renovation of 12 washrooms. We have the redesigning and the furnishing of the 7th floor auditorium.
The boat was constructed, it was roughly about 600 million, not far from the price you had quoted in doing minor renovations and refurbishment.
There were no pending bids accrued while the then Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was in office, and the upgrading funds were in their maiden budget under the Kenya Kwanza government.
What was the procurement system that was used to actually tell us there were actually no pending bills in a financial year that ends on 30th of June, and then all of a sudden you find everything has been paid except 4 million shillings out of 4 billion.
The fate of 108 staff who worked for Gachagua has been made clear by the Principal Assistant Secretary in the Office of the Deputy President.
Contracts were tied with the tenure of the principal as it were then. With the exit of then His Excellency, the term and the contracts of the staff also came to an end. They have since been issued with letters as required by the law, and therefore that aspect has been addressed.
He says that those who had permanent and pensionable contracts are still working, even as others expect the termination dues.
The processes of clearing them is going on to have them cleared and also to pay them their final dues as required by the law. Chair, for the P&P staff, those who are deployed from other MDAs, the officers, the colleagues are still in the office, and we are still working.
Joel Chacha, K24 TV, Nairobi.
All right, that story by Joel Chacha takes us to our first break here on New Dawn. Of course, when we come back, I'll be taking you through what you're waking up to on the newspapers. So continue engaging us on our socials. At Amoy Brian, that is on X at K24 TV, across social media platforms. I'm talking about X, Facebook, and also on YouTube. We'll be sampling your feedback as we continue with the program this particular morning. And also the question that we are posing to you is, which direction do you believe the country is headed to the right direction? Because we are taking a look at what next for Kenya on matters